What is up, everybody? And as you can see, we are not in our regular gray plushy chairs. We are still gracing your screens and gracing your ears. Anyway, this is the Rundown podcast, an official podcast of the Washington football team. With me, as always, is Kyle Stackpole, our editor. I am Zach Selby, staff writer for WashingtonFootball.com. And Kyle, I don't know about you, I'm still feeling pretty good about the Dallas win on Thanksgiving. Still kind of recovering from the Thanksgiving food that I had there, but finally back in DC for me. And Kyle, what's been on your mind the past few days?
What's been on my mind, and I tweeted it last night, is that the Steelers, 11-0, coming off a big win over the Ravens, short week. And they have the Bills to look forward to on Sunday night. I'm thinking about a letdown spot.
Are you calling it a trap game? Is this a
I'm
trap
calling
game?
it a trap game if there ever was one. Okay?
Ooh,
so,
okay.
I mean, Steelers got to lose at some point. And Washington, like you said, coming off their biggest win of the year. Obviously, I'm still riding that high based on what I'm saying right now. But I just think with the extra time, the Steelers in a short week, they just lost. I think Bud Dupree is out, one of their better linebackers. So I don't know. I mean, I know Steelers are 8.5 point favorites, but I think Washington's going to keep it close.
Yeah, who knows? We'll see. I mean, it's going to be a short week for Pittsburgh. They just got done playing on Wednesday and beating the Baltimore Ravens. I think it was 19-14. I believe that was the score. Yeah, but we got a great show for you guys today. We're going to be going over all the Steelers info to get you ready for Monday night's game. We're going to go over the pulse. We're going to go over who we got. We got some good ones for you this week. Before we do that, we got to do the plugs. My thing. This is an official podcast of the Washington football team. You can check us out wherever you find your podcast: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, I think I already said Spotify again, but I'm going to say it one more time to remind you. You can check us out on WashingtonFootball.com, YouTube. Check out the wonderful video that Stevie is providing for us. Give us a rate, review, subscribe, 5 stars. And again, leave us a comment in the YouTube comment section or wherever you find your podcast. We will read it if we like it and it's good enough that we think it's good enough to be on the podcast. But let's go and jump into the show, Kyle. Let's start off with the pulse here. And Peyton Barber had 11 carries, 57 yards, and it got you wondering: should Peyton be able to? Should he be getting more carries now that with this critical stretch coming up down the road?
Yeah. So I have 2 responses. I don't think he should get more carries because I think him getting more carries is going to take away from Antonio Gibson, who is coming off a 3-touchdown game, 136 total yards. J.D. McKissick is locked into that 3rd down role. Mm-hmm. And Peyton Barber is averaging 2.9 yards a carry. And I get it. He's a short yardage back, and he's using the 4-minute drill. And that's what offensive coordinator Scott Turner said. And he's getting those tough yards. But he shouldn't be getting more carries, in my opinion. But I want him to get more carries. Mm-hmm. Because if he's getting more carries, that means Washington is in a positive game script. So out of his 59 carries this year, 46 have come in the 4 wins. And like you said, he had 11 for 57 against the Cowboys. So when he's in the game, that means Washington is either in a short yardage situation or they're trying to chew up some clock. So I know it's not a definitive answer that maybe you're looking for, but I don't think he should get more carries because I think Antonio Gibson and JD are more talented. But if he's getting more carries, I'm not going to complain because that probably means Washington's winning.
So I do believe that JD and Antonio are more talented. That's obvious, I think. But, I mean, look at what he's been able to do when he gets a chance. I mean, when in the Cowboys, he averaged over 5 yards carry. So I tend to agree with you, but I think that's the reason why he should get more carries, honestly, because I believe that Washington is going to be in a position to give him more carries as they're controlling the clock, and this offense is playing very, very well lately, and I think that's going to continue. Even against the Steelers, I think they have a chance to do something on offense with the formula of Gibson and McLaurin. So that gives a little bit of a sprinkle in for Peyton Barber to have some room to have some carries there, and maybe he gets 11, maybe he gets 12 or 13. But I think that's the formula I think you need to have for Peyton Barber to go out there and have some success.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit it. I was tough on Barber all year because he was averaging 2.2 yards, but
Yeah.
he is getting those tough yards. And I'll give him this. He looked pretty explosive against Dallas. He had a couple
Exactly.
runs where he looked shifty, he looked fast, he looked powerful. So maybe that's kind of the start of a trend here. But I agree with you. I think Washington's going to be playing in more favorable situations. So I think that bodes well for Barber.
Yeah, I think so too. And let's move on to the next one here. Now Pittsburgh and Washington are entering this game with a little bit of a different situation. Washington has a long rest with this. I think they're going to be having about 10 days of rest or 11 days. And Pittsburgh, about 4 days of rest there before they play that Monday night game, which was Sunday, which got moved to Monday because of all the COVID issues that the league has had. So which team do you think this benefits more in terms of the short versus long-term rest?
I think it definitely benefits Washington. It's interesting because like after a win like you have over Dallas, sometimes you want to just ride that positive momentum because that was the best they performed all year and just say, all right, let's bring on a better opponent. Let's go right now. But I think being able to have the weekend to rest up and having this extra day too is going to really allow them to get healthy. We'll see if Cornelius Lucas and DeShazer Everett can come back. Those would be two starters that if they can return, that'll help a lot. And it just gives them more time to prepare for this Steelers team that is undefeated. I mean, they're one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL. And I think as much time as Washington has to prepare, or the more time they have to prepare, the better. And I think in addition to the Steelers having short rest, not only do they have short rest, but they're looking past Washington. I mean, 4-7, they're 11-0. They're looking to lock up that number one seed because this year only the number one seeds get a bye, and they have the Bills coming up. So I think this is definitely going to go in Washington's favor. The only issue is you don't want Washington coming out slow because they've had so many days of rest.
Well, I don't really think that they're looking necessarily past Washington because if you look at some of the wins they've had against worse teams have been really close. I mean, they barely beat the Dallas Cowboys a few weeks ago, if you remember. And I'm going to go with Pittsburgh on this just because they have more experience dealing with a turbulent schedule. They've had their games moved around more so than any other team in the league, honestly. You remember that with the Titans having, a little bit of a mini outbreak earlier in the season, that game got moved from week 4, I believe, down to like week 8 because of that. And then on top of this, they've had to deal with all these other schedule changes now with 2 games with the Ravens and now Washington. And they have still found a way to be 11-0. And I mean, I got to go with the team that has more experience with this kind of unknown circumstances here, and you really can't imagine any other circumstance better than Pittsburgh. All right, let's move on real quick here. Let's finish the last one of the pulse. Pittsburgh has some really good wideouts: Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster, and honestly, you can't forget Eric Ebron either. Honestly, so how can Washington stop this explosive Pittsburgh wideout group?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. You also didn't mention Deontay Johnson, who's
of course
been really good as well. So
on my fantasy team actually.
he's been a PPR monster, and he was again yesterday. But so when you have those 3 receivers might be one of the best trios in the NFL. I mean, you have the Bucks who are strong. There's a couple other teams who are strong, but Big Ben has a lot of weapons at his disposal, and he spreads the ball around. Yep. And I think the best way you're going to limit them, because you're not going to stop them, but at least try to contain them, is trying to get pressure on Big Ben. Try to get him to force the ball out early, make some rush throws. Maybe the secondary can jump a route or 2, maybe get an interception, a couple pass breakups. The problem with that is that entering this game, Pittsburgh is allowing less than a sack a game. 0.9 sacks for the year. That's number 1 in the NFL. So the offensive line is protecting him pretty darn well, but I still think that that's where Washington is strongest, and they're just going to have to make plays. Maybe that means Jack Del Rio dialing up some blitzes, and
maybe
you got to take some risks. And if you get beat over the top, you get beat over the top. But if you allow Big Ben to stay in the pocket, those receivers are going to get open. They're just too good. So I think Washington's going to really have to get after Big Ben any way they can and try to fluster him a little bit.
I agree with you, so I'm just going to keep it real quick here. 2 things really for me is going to be pressuring Big Ben. He leads the league in the fastest release. I think it's 2 seconds from what I heard from Wednesday Night Football.
Wow.
So that's really fast.
Wednesday Night Football.
Yeah, hey, you got to expect the unexpected in this league in 2020. And the other thing is play aggressive man defense, because this Pittsburgh passing attack is basically like a rushing attack, the way they dink and dunk downfield. An example of that when they played Pittsburgh in Tennessee. That's 2 undefeated teams back then. Pittsburgh really took up 10 minutes of the first quarter, just going down the field and scoring. So I think that if they can play aggressive, they can get Big Ben off that chemistry with his receivers. That can help out, because this offense really doesn't do a lot of big plays, which Washington tends to give up historically over this season. So that kind of bodes well for what they want to do. All right, guys, that was the pulse. Some great back and forth between Kyle and myself. I feel like I ended up getting more of the right answers on that one than Kyle did, but that's just me. When you're right, and you just know. But when we come back, guys, we're going to be doing a new segment called Quick Hits, where we kind of go over a little bit more in detail for the Pittsburgh game. Stick with us, guys.
At RTS, game day strategy doesn't stop when the whistle blows. RTS delivers smarter, more responsible waste and recycling services. As an official partner of the Washington football team, RTS is connecting the team and FedEx Field with sustainable solutions to care for the community and the environment. RTS, a better waste company. Find out more at rts.com.
Has your business been affected by COVID-19? Have you considered reducing or moving your office space? Then it's time to call Victory Van. We provide the best service and price with flexible options for your company's moving and storage needs. Visit victoryvan.com to get your free moving and storage quote today. For corporate storage and moving, it's always the right move to choose Victory Van. That's victoryvan.com. Victory Van Corporation, delivering excellence for 75 years and a proud partner of the Washington football team.
Finch Services Incorporated, recognized in its industry as a world-class organization, is the exclusive supplier of John Deere golf and sports turf maintenance equipment for the Mid-Atlantic region. In business since 1945, Finch helps golf course and sports turf managers maintain some of the most exclusive playing surfaces in the region. Experience the Finch advantage for yourself. Contact one of our golf and sports turf sales specialists to see how we can help you maintain your field of dreams. Go to finchturf.com for more information.
We are back here on the Rundown Podcast, official podcast of the Washington football team. Check us out wherever you find your podcast. Also, Kyle, I forgot to mention our Twitter's handles at the beginning of the show. So check out Kyle at Kyle Stackpole. Check out me at Zach D. Selby. But Kyle, this is a rare moment for the Rundown. This is like a history-making moment. We have some breaking news, really.
That's right.
And
breaking news.
It is that Terry McLaurin, Chef Terry, who's having a Pro Bowl season, go vote for him, by the way, has been nominated for the Art Rooney Sportsmanship Award that Adrian Peterson won last year. So, I mean, that just goes to show you what kind of person Terry is, because Terry is phenomenal. I mean, as good as he is on the field, he's an even better person. He always gives you time of day, and on and off the field, he's just an outstanding person. So, I mean, Kyle, what's your reaction to this, man?
I think I'm not very surprised, because I think he's totally deserving. Even if he was just like a role player on offense and didn't really do much, I think he would still be deserving of the award, because he does everything right. Like Rivera said, everything that he works on, he excels at. And you saw against Dallas when he ran down Jalen Smith, that gave him so much pride to be able to do that. And then you throw in the fact that he's one of the best receivers in the league. So he is I'm not surprised at all, because he's the epitome of the type of player that Ron Rivera wants to build around. And I feel like even the coaches have been impressed with what he's been able to do on the field, off the field, and just overall in that locker room. So well deserved to Terry. Let's have him win that award and make the Pro Bowl. More awards for Terry, the better.
Well, we don't have a vote, honestly. I mean, but if we did, we know who we'd vote for, and that would be Chef Terry. So good luck to him. I mean, he definitely deserves the award. But we're going to move on to our regularly scheduled program here. And we're going to be introducing a new segment here called Quick Hits. We're going to having 5 questions related to the Steelers game. And we're going to kind of just go back and forth. And we do not know what each of the answers for this are going to be. So it's going to be very interesting to see what we have to say. But I'll go ahead and start off here, Kyle. And, if you look at some of Pittsburgh's wins, some of them have been good. You look at Cleveland, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, handedly taking over those games. But also there's been some other wins here with like the Giants, Dallas, Tennessee, both Baltimore games, that they've kind of been in a little bit of a fight, and they haven't really been able to take control of those games till like the very end. Now Tennessee is very good. Baltimore is a playoff caliber team, but Dallas and Giants, we know they're not very good in terms of what they're able to do record wise. So why do you think Pittsburgh has been struggling to maintain that consistent control all year?
Yeah, I think the Giants game, it's tough. That was the first game of the year, so it's kind of hard to judge. But I'm really looking at the Dallas game, and that was really a head scratcher because they were on their third string QB. I think Garrett Gilbert started that game, and Dallas was in control, and Pittsburgh had to win it late. So I'm not sure. I mean, I think Pittsburgh's not a team that's going to routinely overpower you like the Chiefs are. Like the Chiefs can just put up 35, 40 points easy. The Saints can do the same thing. And so can the Seahawks. I feel like the Steelers are more methodical, but they also know how to win. So even when they're not playing their best with Ben Roethlisberger, with Mike Tomlin, they're okay with playing those close games and, squeaking out wins. But I think that bodes well for Washington because the fact that the two NFC East opponents that Pittsburgh has played, well, I guess they played. Did they play the Eagles?
I believe they have, yeah. But
I think that might have been a bigger.
I believe they were not. There's one of those games they handled pretty easily.
Okay, but still, the fact that two NFC East teams that they played were close games, and I really think they were probably overlooking the Cowboys in that game, and you saw what happened. So I think that it shows that they can be beat, and they can get beat by anyone, but they could also beat anyone. So that's my thoughts there.
So Kyle, Stevie comes in with the dunk on both of us. Steelers won 38-29 October 11th over the Eagles. So thank you for that, Stevie. We appreciate we appreciate the stats update from Stevie. So I really think it has a lot to do with the way that the offense is played. I think it's an extension of that run game. It's not really one that's going to give you a lot of big plays. That's why they're around the middle of the pack in total yards per game. But I do think that it's enough to keep their offense on the field, and then whenever their defense is out there, they're just gonna dominate people. And I think that's really why they've been so successful. Let's go on to the next one here. Chase Claypool, though, has been phenomenal. He has 611 yards, leading the team in receiving yards. He's second now among rookies in touchdowns. So what makes him such a reliable target for Ben Roethlisberger?
I think he's been their deep threat. I mean, they go deep to Chase Claypool, and he's been making plays. He leads the team with 13.6 yards per reception. He leads the team with 8 touchdowns. He's got a long reception of 84 yards, and he's got 9 big plays. So Big Ben, even though that he's a rookie, he trusts him downfield, and Claypool has been making plays. So I think over time, as Big Ben realizes that, hey, this is a kid who can play and who can help us move the ball vertically, he's just been continuing to go back to him, and he's really answered the bell.
He's really kind of the Steelers' Terry McLaurin in a lot of ways. I mean, they lull him to sleep with that extension of the run game, pass game, dink and dunk slants all day long. And then all of a sudden you have Chase Claypool who's just going to run down the field, down the sideline and score on you. So I think that's really what is the offense, again, I think is really what makes them so difficult, because you can look at what they do and you can say, oh, it's just consistently down 5 and 10 yard plays. But then all of a sudden you see Chase Claypool out there and he does what he does. So I think that's really what makes him so hard, is just the offense again. Now let's move on to the next one here. And Pittsburgh leads the NFL with 41 sacks. I mean, that's pretty dang good, honestly. And now Washington is tied for second in the NFL with 36 sacks with the Philadelphia Eagles. But if you look at this pass rush, how are they able to get such consistent pressure?
I think it just comes down to talent. I mean, they have a lot of talented guys on that front seven. TJ Watt is having an all-pro type year. He leads all defenders with, I think it was 11 sacks. Bud Dupree, the linebacker, he's got 8 sacks. Stephon Tuitt has 7 sacks. They just have a lot of guys that can attack you in a lot of different ways. And that's really it. I mean, when you have good talent and you scheme up good defensive stunts and blitzes, you're going to get to the quarterback. And I think Washington, with the injuries it's had to the offensive line, it's going to be crucial that they can at least limit these sacks this week because Alex Smith isn't the most mobile guy. We know that. So I think talent has everything to do with it.
Yeah, Pittsburgh leads the NFL in pass rush win rate. Washington is fourth, but Pittsburgh is by far. In 2.5 seconds, they get to the quarterback. Now, one big thing about this game is that the Steelers have been dealing with some COVID issues. James Conner, Gerald Hawkins, Marquise Pouncey, and Stephon Tuitt, all impact players, they've been on the reserved COVID list. How is that going to affect this game, Kyle?
I mean, it could affect it a lot because not only are those guys on the list, but more players could be added to the list before Monday's game. I mean, the Ravens were the ones that had a lot of the COVID issues and they didn't have any positive tests yesterday, which is why the game continued as scheduled. But they could turn around in the next 2 days, a couple guys test positive, there's a couple close contacts, and all of a sudden the team that Washington prepared for is looking a lot different. Mm-hmm. So it's such a fluid situation. We also don't know when the guys who are on COVID list now are coming back because if James Conner is out, starting running back, that's going to be huge. If Stephon Tuitt is out, that's going to be big. Marquise Pouncey, obviously. These aren't just no-name guys. These are some of the centerpieces of Pittsburgh's team. So that's going to be really interesting to follow because what happens with that is going to have a huge impact on how the game plays out.
Yeah, for sure. And if you look at the way they played against the Baltimore Ravens, they won, but it was not convincing, which is what you come to expect. One last thing, Kyle, before we get into this game, it's a big game for both teams. Steelers get to go 12-0. Washington potentially gets to take a first place lead in the NFC East. What is one thing that Washington has to do to get this upset?
I think the biggest thing is going to be creating turnovers. They have to get multiple turnovers. That has been one of the biggest keys in their wins this season. You saw it against Dallas, Montez Sweat with his acrobatic interception return. With the gap between Washington and the Steelers, you need something that's going to offset that. And that is turnovers and getting short fields and then capitalizing on those short fields, just like they did against Philly in week 1. So I think turnovers are the biggest thing, getting pressure as well, but they need a couple interceptions or a fumble to keep this thing close.
I'll keep it real quick here. I got to go with continue to pressure Big Ben. Leads the NFL in throwing release, 2 seconds. They got to get him off that rhythm. If they can do that, I think they have a chance. All right, guys, that has been Quick Hits. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to get to the segment that people are clamoring about. It is Who We Got. Stick with us, guys.
Couchgating, presented by the DC Lottery. Couchgating is the new tailgating. Enter to win a chance at a WFT DC Lottery fan pack. Celebrate your Couchgate by sharing a photo using hashtag DCL to have your Couchgating photo featured on the Couchgating Wall of Fame. Please post your photos on social media using the tags at Washington Football, at DC Lottery, and the hashtag CouchGatingDCL for consideration. Please note that not all photos will be accommodated on the Couchgating Wall of Fame, and all Couchgating photos are posted on the sole discretion of the Washington Football Team.
It's all-wheel drive season, and your local Honda dealers are bringing the best deals of the year. It's clearance pricing during the Happy Honda Day sales event. Dash through the snow in a rugged and adventurous Honda. Check out our entire all-wheel drive truck and SUV lineup. CRV, HRV, Ridgeline, Pilot, Passport, with features like Honda Sensing, Magic Folding Seats, and 3 different driving modes. Clearance pricing is here, but it won't last long. Don't miss clearance pricing at Happy Honda Day sales event, now at your local Honda dealer.
Once again, for the Rundown Podcast, check us out wherever you find your podcast. And, I forgot, before I move on to the third segment, we have another segment, and it is Stevie's Studs and Duds. Stevie is in the office. She is gracing the podcast once again. Stevie, how are you?
Good. I'm good. I'm very excited. Thank you guys for allowing me to make my the Rundown debut. So I'm really excited for this.
Of course, we couldn't do it without you, Stevie. But yeah, you got some names for us. So Stevie, let's not waste any more time. Hit us with the first one.
All right. So I think this one's going to be a little bit too easy, but we haven't touched on it a whole lot. So let's go with Morgan Moses.
Kyle, you go ahead and start off with this one.
All right. I think you're right. I think it is an easy one. I think he's a stud. He did a ton of work this offseason, and it showed this year. He's stayed healthy. He's battled through some not injuries, but some nicks and bruises. He's had one of his best years at right tackle. And in the past 2 games, he moves over to left tackle, a position he hasn't played since 2014.
Yeah.
And Washington's offensive line was the PFF offensive line of the week against the Bengals. So he basically has been doing everything the team has asked of him. He's also become much more of a leader. There was that video of him getting into the other offensive players on the sideline. I'm not sure who that was against, but he has taken charge of this team. Him and Brandon Sheriff have taken charge of this offensive line that has been quite good considering the injuries and the other circumstances. So Morgan Moses definitely gets a stud from me.
I think this is hopefully the one that we agree on the most. I think it has to be a stud because, I'll tell you, it's really hard to move from a position you've been playing for most of your career and then all of a sudden just going over to the opposite end of the offensive line and do it, because you would think that it's very similar, but it's not. I mean, the motions are completely flipped. The protections, the way you pass rush is a little bit different. The stance is different, and he did it without missing a beat. Did it mid game, and still went out there and had one of his best games run blocking ever. And on top of that, he's done it pretty much for the past couple weeks, and it hasn't really missed a beat. I have to go with stud just because he's been phenomenal. Also, quietly having a Pro Bowl season himself. So I think we should maybe get that campaign started here as well. So if you feel like he's deserving, go vote him into the Pro Bowl because he is a definite stud.
Get Big Mo to the Pro Bowl.
Ooh, I like that.
Official nickname. Watch the Rundown podcast.
All right, guys, I got my next one, which is going to be offensive coordinator Scott Turner. And I only say this because after the Bengals game, I think fans were a little bit upset that he robbed Antonio Gibson of a 100-yard gain, or 100-yard game. Sorry about that. But what do you guys think about him?
So I'll start off with this one, and I think he's a stud. Honestly, I mean, you look at the past 6 games, he's had his offensive have put up at least 325 yards. And I mean, you look at some of the 400-yard games, that's fantastic and all that, but really the balance has been so key to this offense lately. And throwing in the wrinkle to the trick plays has been great. I think they added a different kind of dimension to the offense, and he's throwing whatever he wants to out there to get this offense to be successful. In the past 2 weeks, it's worked, and I think he's hitting a little bit of a stride, honestly. And the consistency is such a big thing on offense. He started out as a dud, I think, in my book for the first 5 or 6 weeks, but after that Dallas win in week 7, he's really started to come on as a coordinator and a play caller, and we forget that he's growing as well in that role. It's the first time he's ever really been in that role full time. So I'm going to go with stud. I think his star is going to continue to rise through this critical part of the season.
Yeah, I want to disagree with you, Zach, but I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think so. To start the year, he was like a little dud seed, and throughout the year, he's blossomed into a stud flower, and the flower just continues to grow. I mean, what this guy has been able to do. He had no offseason. Training camp was different than it ever has been. He had no preseason. This is his first year as a full-time offensive coordinator, and he's dealt with 3 different quarterbacks. 3. Who else has done that in the NFL? And the fact that these past 6 games, they've had at least 325 yards of total offense. Washington, their 3 losses have only come by 7 points. They're number 2 in third down since week 6. I mean, everything that you could want from an offensive coordinator, he's been doing it. And then you throw in the wrinkle plays. You throw in a Bumble Rooski from 1994 Little Giants. Like, Scott Turner's up in the booth, like feeling himself. Like, all right, I just had this one. Like, let me show you another one. So I think he's only going to continue to get better as he learns and develops as a play caller, and as his offensive players learn and develop as well because they're so young. So give me a stud for Scott Turner. Like you said, he is on the rise.
All right, and then my last one, we're going to go with safety DeShazer Everett.
Shazer Everett. All right. So Zach got on me for labeling Cornelius Lucas a dud for
being injured.
I'm not going to make that same mistake again. I think DeShazer has been a stud. He has been a stud since he's come in for Troy Apke. He has had a couple penalties, but that's more been because of his aggressiveness, and it's kind of hard to fault him for that. he's come up in the run game. He's made plays in the passing game. He doesn't wait for things to happen. He makes things happen. And I think that's what the coaches like about that. Jack Del Rio said when he first started that he had a little bit of juice. And don't ask Del Rio what juice means, because if you don't know it, he's not telling you. So I think DeShazer's a stud. It is going to be interesting to see if he comes back this week, because Jeremy Reeves had a nice game.
He did.
And I don't know, are they going to be going with him and keep DeShazer on special teams? I assume DeShazer will start because of what he's done. But yeah, I think he's been a stud these past couple games, and he's been a stud on special teams his entire career.
I think we're starting to develop a little bit of a stud tree garden here, honestly, because you start out at the beginning of the season, he was not a stud. I mean, He only had 3 tackles heading into the game, the earlier game against the Giants. And ever since he's gotten that starting role, check this out: 3 tackles, he's had 5, 3, 7, and 3. And all 4 of those games have been started. Now he didn't play that much against the Bengals. But I mean, I still think he's done really what the safety position needs for them to do. You know, the safety position has been kind of a rotating door a little bit this season, because you had Apke in there, and then when you put DeShazer in there, it seemed like he provided that juice that Del Rio likes to make fun of us for not knowing about. But I do think that he's done enough in the past 4 starts to earn him a stud role, because he does exactly what, especially with Landon out. I think this safety position needs that physical presence, and you brought it up. I mean, he brings the boom in a lot of ways, and that's something that Landon used to do, and DeShazer's kind of filled that role nicely. And then with Reeves, I think he did well. I think he's a good story. But, by the way, check out that story that Logan Campbell did for us on watchfootball.com. That's another really good story you should look at for Jeremy Reeves. But, I mean, I think DeShazer done enough to say, this is my spot, and this is a great story. Jeremy Reeves can be in the rotation, but DeShazer Everett is that dude. So I'm going to go with a stud as well. This is all 3 studs. We're feeling really good about ourselves.
Everyone
today.
Gets a stud. Just handed them out like candy.
All right, Stevie. I think that was all the stuff and duds we have. Thank you so much for your debut. We really appreciate you coming in here. And also, I mean, she'll be behind the scenes for this podcast for the rest of the show. But this is all we're gonna see from Stevie this week. So again,
Stevie, what's your Twitter handle? Where can people follow you?
Everyone can follow me at @cats_Stevie.
All right, she's bringing the fire.
I'm bringing it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
She's bringing the hot takes. The last segment. Now, Kyle, you've seen Game of Thrones, right?
I have seen Game of Thrones. If you haven't, you should stop listening to this and start watching.
So in season 5, end of season 5, spoilers for anyone who doesn't know, Jon Snow gets stabbed to death. And
oh my God, dude!
The last time, his last word, he whispered something, and people think that he's saying Ollie, the kid who he'd been trying to take care of for most of that season. But he really wasn't saying Ollie. He was asking Ollie, what does that gal have for who we got? And look, I'm just telling you, go back and listen to it. It's there. This is the segment people are clamoring for, and we got some good ones for you this week. And we're going to go ahead and start off with the one that really needs to be answered here. Washington, number 2 with 36 sacks. Pittsburgh, 41 sacks, lead the NFL. Who gets more in this sack battle?
Yeah, so I think just like looking at the stats, I mean, I know it's 2-1, but I think I would say Pittsburgh. But it looks like Bud Dupree, who's second in sacks, he's going to be out for the year with a torn ACL. Stephon Tuitt, who's third on the team with 7 sacks, he's on the COVID list. So there's a chance that neither of those guys play.
True.
That being said, I'm still giving it to the Steelers, because I just think that it's more because the Steelers' offensive line has been so stout, whereas Washington's offensive line, while good, has still been giving up some sacks. I think they're averaging 3 a game the past 3 or 4 games, or since Alex Smith has been in there. So I think it's going to be closer than people think, and I think that the O-line is going to be able to handle Pittsburgh, but I think in the end, the Steelers are going to have more.
I'm going to go with Washington, and here's why. over half of their 36 sacks have come in the past 5 or 6 games. And they're finally starting to become that unit that everyone was saying that the league should be fearing heading into this season. And onto their 4th in pass rush. But ESPN Get Up gave us a little bit of stats earlier this week, and Himbo said that since week 3, Washington has led the league in pass rush win rate, just overall, not week to week, overall. So I think that says something, and especially now finally. The point of attack was there earlier, but they couldn't finally get that to the destination of the quarterback. That's finally starting to flip and become more of a reality. So I'm going to go with Washington here. It's going to be close, but I think I'm going to go with Washington.
Did you say Himbo? Who's Himbo?
Himbo is like their stats guy. He's like our Stevie.
Okay. I like Stevie better.
Yeah, agreed. I very much agreed. All right, guys, let's go ahead and run through these because we're running through. We're getting the time updates from Stevie here. More first downs, Pittsburgh or Washington. I'll take this one first because Washington is 23rd with 20.9 averaging. Pittsburgh is 21.4, but over the past 3 weeks, Washington's been tied for 3rd with 25.3 first downs, and Pittsburgh is 10th with 22.3. I'm going to go with Washington here just because I believe Washington's offense has been on a little bit of a roll. I think they could extend their streak of at least 325 yards to 7 games against Pittsburgh, even though they have a great defense. They haven't seen Chef Terry yet. They haven't seen Antonio Gibson yet. So I'm going to go with Washington because I believe that offense is on a little bit of a roll.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Steelers because of what they do defensively. They are one of the best defenses in the NFL. And frankly, the past 6 or 7 weeks, Washington hasn't gone up against very good teams. And while the Giants were good defensively, or they are good defensively, this is a huge jump in terms of quality. And I just think it's going to be tough for Washington to move the ball. And I think that's why I think that the turnover is going to be big to give them some short fields to score some points. So ideally, you'd like Washington's offense to keep moving and keep Big Ben off the field, but I think it's going to be tough. So I'm going to go with Pittsburgh.
Okay. All right. I don't agree, but I'll go with it. For the last one, we have a 4 for the people because we love the people here. How will Washington open the opening drive end on Monday? Because they haven't scored yet this year on their opening drive. So do you think it's going to end with a touchdown, a turnover, a punt, or a field goal?
All right. So you would think, based on what Washington has done in their first drive this year, which is absolutely nothing, going against Pittsburgh, that it would be a punt or a turnover. But I'm bucking the trend. I'm saying Dustin Hopkins, 45-yard field goal right through the uprights. Washington's going to get the ball first because the only thing as sure as them not scoring is them losing the coin toss.
Yes.
So always get the ball first. So I think they're going to get the ball first, and Pittsburgh is going to be sleeping a little bit, still coming off that Ravens game. Might be a Terry McLaurin play here, Antonio Gibson run there, and Dustin Hopkins going to put it through 3-0. So I know people might get on me for that, but I have faith in D-Hop.
That is oddly specific, but I like it. I'm going to go one better. I'm saying if the streak ends this Monday, they're going to score, and I'm not going to say whether it's going to be Terry McLaurin or Antonio Gibson, but chances are it's those two. And I'm going to go with the touchdown. They're going to take a lead. I'm not going to say what's going to happen after that because I'm not in the business of making predictions, but I'm going to say they get a touchdown. They're going to take a lead in the first quarter. All right, guys, that's been who we got. And I think it's going to be it for us today. Wait, Stevie had it. Definitely going to be Peyton Barber since you guys said that. Okay. You're right, Stevie. Peyton Barber might have having like a 1-yard rushing touchdown.
Put some respect on Peyton Barber's name.
We should. Coming from Kyle. All right. This has been a great show for us. And we had some breaking news. We agreed on a lot of things. This might be one of the greatest shows we've ever had, honestly. And before we get out of here, we got to go with the virtual plugs. I'll do it real quick. This is an official podcast of the Washington football team. You can check us out wherever you find your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn. Forgot those last time. And you can check us out, all of our wonderful work on WashingtonFootball.com. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on the Twitters, @Stackpole. at Zach D. Selby. Check out the Wow podcast, all the Underfiltered podcasts, because we do some great work here. We deliver you all of the best content all the time, every time. That's right, Kyle. All right, this is Steelers Week. Get ready for the potential big upset. For Kyle, I'm Zach, and this has been The Rundown.
For more than 100 years, Chesapeake Employers Insurance has been helping Maryland businesses keep their workers safe. With competitive pricing and an AM Best A- financial strength rating, it's no surprise that Chesapeake Employers is Maryland's largest writer of workers' comp insurance.
At the end of every workday, someone's waiting for your safe return.
Connect with your agent or visit CEIWC.com.
Locally owned Novak is energizing the community in powerful ways. From sponsoring meals for first responders and medical professionals to donating generously to area food banks, Novak knows we're in this together. Novak and customers are funding crisis energy assistance by having their bills rounded up each month. Novak and employees are supporting local charities through Novak Helps. That's the power of working together. That's Novak.
Fred, this was so nice of us to share Maryland Lottery scratch-offs with our neighbors. Happy holidays, Selena.
What's this? Scratch-offs? Cool, thanks.
Your tuba is a nice touch, Fred. Well, 5 more neighbors to visit. What's wrong? Your lips are frozen to the tuba?
This year, multiply the cheer. Give Holiday Multiplier scratch-offs from the Maryland Lottery. Top prize $100,000. Please play safely and responsibly.
And now, time for a Happy Honda Days clearance highlight. The season had grown cold, and the roads were covered in ice. Looking to capitalize on clearance pricing, Amy went down to her local Honda dealer and test drove the entire all-wheel drive SUV lineup. CRV, HRV, Passport, and more. In the end, Amy got a clearance deal on a new Pilot equipped with 3 different driving modes. Boom, baby, boom.
Don't miss clearance pricing at the Happy Honda Days sales event, now at your local Honda dealer.